Coldplay, unarguably the biggest band in the world, are back with their new album, Moon Music. Tim, what did you think?
I was very surprised with how experimental this album is. And coming off the back of the 2 singles that they released, it was really hard to gauge what direction they were going to go in. But I think, I didn't hate it. So let's get straight into the track listing with the title track of Moon Music. What did you think?
I thought this was a calm little introduction to the album. Nothing too serious. It kind of gave the vibes, now having listened to it all, that we would come to expect at the end of the album. I thought that it was just okay. The only gripe I have with this song is there was a really weird deep voice effect right at the end of it that proper weird. I didn't like that at all.
So it was a very chill track, cool intro to the track. I don't have anything good to say about it. I don't have anything bad to say about it. But as an intro track, yeah, it stands up. Moving off that, we went into Feels Like I'm Falling in Love, and that's what the weird low voice lends itself into. I think it merges quite nicely into that, but this was one of the singles that was released before the album, which would have set people on a weird trajectory as to what to expect.
To be honest, I think this is a great song. It's really catchy. I quite like the chorus. It feels like a typical Coldplay of the last decade pop song banger that they know will get radio play, they know will do really well. I actually think that this is the best song on the album.
Very simple, very formulaic, and it works amazingly well for a Coldplay track. Like you were saying, it's very Chris Martin vocals and lyrics. Yeah, all around just a Coldplay track.
And then We Pray.
This is featuring Little Sims, Burna Boy, Aliana, and Teeny. And when you see those features on a Coldplay track, you think, what the hell is going on here?
It is a really random group to be featuring with Coldplay. I think it works quite well in terms of features, but this is a very religious-based song. And to be honest, from this point, I think that that's a theme that kind of persists throughout the album. So in terms of lyrics and me relating to the song, it's really difficult because I'm not religious. But I thought the Little Sims feature especially was really good. I think she's a fantastic artist. But I don't know, I just didn't vibe with it as much.
I don't dislike it as much as I did when I heard it as a single. As a single, I thought, what the hell are they doing? In the context of the album, I think, all right, it makes a bit more sense. But for me, this album could have done without it. This is one of the skips on the album that you can easily pass by. But like you say, the features are pretty decent, and there's some classic la-la-las towards the end that I can 100% hear a stadium chanting along with.
I agree, and I think it's a shame, though, when you've got such great big artists on a song and we're both here saying it's a miss. Like, they could have done so much better with these features. You see that lineup and you go, oh, this is going to be good, and it just really wasn't, was it? But should we move on to Jupiter?
I got whiplash listening to this song. Going from the last track into this track, I was like, whoa, what the hell? Which makes me more solidify my point of that last track didn't need to exist. This is a much chiller track, and the bass in the background is divine. I love it.
I thought that this was more of an acoustic. It felt like the first time I'd audibly heard a guitar right at the start of this, which you're right, is very different to the previous track. But for me, listening to this song, it was just boring. It felt like a song. I honestly think you could write this. Like, in terms of the musical content of the song, there was just nothing about it.
That feels like an insult, so I'm not going to address that too much. But the strings that come in at around 2 minutes, and across this album, there's a lot of orchestral, and they've done that in the past couple of projects. I think it works really well and adds a lot to build the track up to a nice climax. Moving off this, we go into...
One more thing before we move off. Sorry. There was a really strange forced ending on this song. I don't know what they were doing there. It was like they brought it really way down to make it flow into the next track, but then it didn't make it flow. I don't know what they did there, but it's like they were forcing you to have an album listening experience, but did it in a really bad way. But sorry to interrupt you. Good feelings. What did you think of that?
A very funky beat when it does finally kick in, and Chris's vocals, I have to give him credit, they're a lot more dynamic than I thought they could ever be.
I thought this song was all right. I really liked the funky beat. I agree. I thought it brought the tempo up quite nicely from the previous couple songs. But again, for me, when I was listening to the lyrics, because when I've listened to older Coldplay albums, I can, usually relate and find some kind of meaning in the lyrics. For me, this was just like middle of the road. It was like a high school teacher had wrote a song that he could play to his kids.
Yeah.
It didn't. No, there was no actual deeper meaning to any of it. It just bored the life out of me.
One upside for it though is that the feature does work very well. I think for this track, the feature lends itself nicely. But moving off this, we go on to what I can only call rainbow emoji.
Boomer energy. Calling a song a rainbow emoji is the biggest boomer energy I have ever seen.
It's a nice filler track. I can't say more than that.
I mean, it's practically just an instrumental, and I think this track, there was a couple moments where it built up quite nicely, and there was kind of like a bit of a grand feel to it. So I don't hate this one. I think it's okay, but it is a really weird title. I Am is up next.
I Am, which is presumably I Am a Mountain based on the lyrics. I'm presuming that's what that's supposed to be. And he got this feeling, and I got this feeling that I don't like this track a whole lot.
This is just super cringy. Like, even the chorus of I Am a Mountain.
It feels very Coldplay based. For me, it doesn't work. For me,
when I was listening to this again, I'm thinking, is this somehow kind of tying to religion? Like, I know that's a bit strange, but like, I'm a mountain, I'm touching the sky. There was lots of references to like being high up and stuff and coming down. And I thought, is this like trying to be religious again? I thought maybe this whole album is going to be one of those people look back on it and really analyze it and say it's just like a religious album through and through.
For me, just doesn't feel fresh. But moving off that, we go into A Turner. What did you think?
Really strange robotic style beat to kick things off, which I wasn't expecting from a Coldplay album. But there's like a little cool bass line that comes in there, which I respect. Really, really weird high-pitched singing that I completely hated with all my heart.
The high-pitched vocals do not do it for me, but the beat is good. It's a very ethereal feel to the track, but I don't really understand the chanting that was included towards the end. I feel like some of the tracks on this album, they've put bits in that they know that stadiums will sing back to them, and that's the only... They've shoehorned them in. They don't feel natural, and I'm like, get rid of it.
Well, I've put, again, religious arse ending. Feels like something you'd hear in a church with people like chanting or like a gospel singing or something. All My Love is up next. This is just a song, innit? It's just like here's a love song.
It's a ballad track. It's a ballad. That's what it is. And I can see this as a good, close to the end of the show track for Coldplay to do live. You know, Chris Martin goes over to his piano, the lights come down, maybe a spotlight on him. He starts this, the lights come up and the rest of the band come in. I get it. It's Coldplay.
But do you not think that we should be disappointed in that? Because we've got plenty of this style of Coldplay songs, and this, to me, just... You could have heard this on the last album. You could have heard this on the album before. There's nothing new about it. It is just boring.
Questionable. I didn't hate this track, and for somebody who doesn't really like slower, low-tempo tracks, you know, I quite like my upbeat, raucous music. I actually somewhat enjoyed it, I can't lie. No. Moving off this, we go into One World, which is the final track on the album, and this is another... At least initially a ballady type track. What did you think?
This felt to me more like a movie outro, you know, where the two people are falling in love and they're running off into the sunset. I didn't mind it. There was a few moments in it where I felt like, oh, it's building up to something, and then it never really hit how I wanted it to. And I don't know if you made it into the last minute of the song, but it went silent and I thought it was over. And then all of a sudden it just comes in with Chris just la-la-line.
Yeah, so
what a horrible way to end an album. Why did he do that?
The la-la-las at the end felt so forced. And like I was saying just now, they shoehorn a bunch of stuff that I'm like, you just want the crowd to sing it, but why? That didn't need it. If he'd have ended without that, it would have been a fantastic cap to the album as a whole. But the use of the swelling orchestra throughout this track, I really enjoy it. Throughout the whole album, I really enjoy the orchestral parts because it just works nicely. But as an ending, good up until that last minute, which they should have just fucking deleted.
And that is the ending, though. Yeah. That's your final thing on the album. Yeah. I think he ruined it with that.
It's unfortunate.
Give me some of your thoughts on the album as a whole, because I feel like you've enjoyed this way more than I have.
So for me, this feels more like a album listening experience than the previous project that they released, and it feels like they've gone more in a direction of, all right, we want people to have a top to bottom listening experience, and I do think that they've achieved that quite well, like falling short of that one track with all the features on it that I thought just felt like it was there for the sake of being there.
For me, I think Coldplay Moon Music is their worst album by a country mile. I thought none of the lyrics felt meaningful. Literally, all of the lyrics to me felt like something you'd hear in a church or in like a primary school church hall. All really safe. nothing out there at all, nothing that felt too personal other than I've got a girlfriend, I'm in love, oh, I feel like I'm on top of a mountain. To me, it was just contentless throughout. I thought there was a few moments where the band did quite well in terms of the orchestral sounds and the instrumentals, but even then, there wasn't really any guitars throughout. It felt like, is this a Coldplay album, or is this just Chris Martin writing absolute dross?
You know how Arctic Monkeys kind of went in that direction where it became Alex Turner featuring Arctic Monkeys? I see what you're saying, because the guitar, there's basically no audible electric guitar throughout the entire album. And I would argue that if you were to turn the guitar mix down to 0, you would lose nothing from the album listening experience, which is such a shame because they've got such talented musicians and they're being overshadowed by these other sounds that they brought in.
This is exactly what I'm saying. I look at Parachutes, I look at Rush of Blood to the Head, the first couple of albums. They were really good, like pop rock albums. I thought they were special and had a lot more content in terms of lyrics. This album for me is just, it's worse than mid. Honestly, the whole time I was listening to it, I was just thinking, is he going to say something that's actually relatable? The only people this is relatable to is people that have just found God, or people that are, I don't know, really in need of some positive vibes, that like for 100% of the time.
So I actually somewhat enjoyed this album as a listening experience, I can't lie. In terms of lyricism, I wasn't really paying that much attention to it. I kind of got the goddy, preachy vibes throughout, and I just thought, you know what, I'll put that to the wayside. I'm not going to let that taint my listening experience as a whole. For me, I can see a lot of Coldplay fans really enjoying this album. I genuinely can. And I think it'd be unfair to say that there isn't a lot of positive upticks on this album as a whole. I do think that there's a lot of positive points.
I think even as an album listening experience, there was 3 or 4 moments where they forced you to end a song, completely change the direction at the end of that current song in a really weird edited way to then make it flow into the next song. I think that they forced it to be a flowing album, and that made it not flow. Like when you just completely change the pitch of someone's voice or completely stop certain parts of a song to make it match the next one, for me it threw me off, so I didn't enjoy it going from track to track either.
But speaking of album listening experiences, what would you give this out of 10?
I'd give this a 3 out of 10.
3 out of 10? Come off it.
Honestly, there is not a single song other than Feels Like I'm Falling in Love that I think is actually good on this album. A lot of them aren't particularly catchy, or if they are catchy, it's just the cringiest lyrics you've ever heard in your life. I really don't think this album has many redeeming features.
As an album, top to bottom listening experience for me, I'm going in at a solid 5.5, maybe even a 6.
You are baffled. You are so strange.
I really enjoyed this listening experience. I really did. I don't really completely agree with your points on it being very cutty and jagged. I think it flows very nicely. I think there's a solid theme throughout. There's only one track in there that I was like, all right, get rid of that. The rest of them, I feel like I will actually go back and listen to this again in the future. I genuinely will.
I feel like there's a solid theme throughout, but none of it is unique and none of it is particularly impressive. There's 1 or 2 moments in those songs that are more filler songs for me, where they build up to something quite good. But apart from that, the content of this album is bottom line for me.
Fair enough, that's your opinion, and we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for watching.
Please remember to like and subscribe. We review a lot of the big albums that come out, and if you agree with me or agree with Tim, let us know your thoughts on this album in the comments.
And we shall see you next time.